It was one
Hmm.
of the songs, I can't remember which one, but it almost sounded like he was playing the vocoder like it was like a sax. It was like it felt like he was just kind of almost breathing into it. It just
Oh,
yeah,
that's probably 45
I
then.
think so, yes.
Which that is a saxophone that's being processed through a vocoder, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's so cool. I love that. It's actually funny. I was looking at the credits, and one of the credits is sad sacks of shit.
Yeah.
And I was like, I gotta know what this is. And welcome to the Our Favorite Vibes podcast. I am your host, Grant Harrigan, and joining me today, I've got a special guest, the face behind the Music Deep Dive YouTube channel, Mr. Alex. How you doing today, buddy?
I'm not doing too bad. How you doing, man?
Doing good, man. It's good to see you. Good to have you on the show. I've always I've always loved talking music with you. So now we get to finally have a nice, good little one-on-one chat about music. Love
I
this.
I know, man. I feel like we've been talking about doing this for a long time now, and I'm just so happy that like we finally got to do it. I'm seriously, I've been waiting for it for so long. I'm so excited. It's gonna be awesome.
Clarity's sake for everyone, I brought this idea up to you a year ago,
Yeah,
almost
that
two
sounds
years
right.
ago, something like that.
Yeah.
We'll get into why as well, because it also kind of does fit into a little bit of the album. We'll see. It's I'm very interested to talk about this album today with you. But the way we always start off is with our little playlist segment. So basically, I've got a little topic, and I'm gonna give my song that I would have. Alex will give his song, and then hopefully in the comments below, I want to hear what your song is. So please put it in there with the comments, along with what else you think about the show. But the topic for today is what soundtrack the perfect morning for you? And perfect morning is kind of up for interpretation, you know? It's kind of, what comes to your mind when you think of a perfect morning and what's soundtracking that morning. So, Mr. Alex, what is your selection, my friend?
Yeah, well, you hit the nail on the head. Like, this was a difficult question for me to answer because you had to answer the question, what is a perfect morning? And that was like low key kind of existential. Like, I had to be like, what do I enjoy? Like, what do I enjoy in the morning in life in general? Right. Um, so I don't know. I was kind of thinking of like, what are things that actually motivate me to just like start the day that give me like energy, whether that's doing something physically active or mentally active or just, I don't know, get the blood pumping, a pump up song, if you will.
Hmm.
Um, and so my pick for this, I'm going to go to the well of one of my favorite like rock bands, favorite bands in general. I got to go with Rush. And there's a lot of Rush songs that could fit because, like, I mean, they got jams. Like, I'm sure most people watching this video know that. But I'm gonna go with kind of a later mid-career jam of theirs, the song Bravado from the Roll the Bones record. Um,
Okay.
so I'm really partial to 90s Rush, just kind of in general. Like I really like that era. I like all those albums a lot. But Bravado is it's a motivational song because the whole idea of it is like, it's about taking risks and about, not being afraid kind of what the future holds because I don't know, like you're not going to get anywhere in life if you don't like take those risks and that courage will pay off. Like the whole chorus refrain is, we may pay the price, but we will not count the cost, which is, kind of a profound sentiment. And
Absolutely.
that's that whole era of 90s Rush is like if you look at the lyrics, like it's low key probably the least interesting period of Neil Peart as a lyricist because he's just writing a lot of songs about uh like insecurity and romance and also just weird songs about like dogs and net boys and net girls. It's very strange, but this is like one of the most profound things I think he wrote in this era and maybe ever. So I don't know, just the whole vibe of that song, that like consistent drum beat, which I mean, I know you're a drummer, so you appreciate like, the Neil Peart grooves and that sort of thing.
Oh
All the
yeah.
subtle changes. There's so many like subtle changes to the beat, mid verse, mid chorus, etc. Everything is always a little bit different. It's wonderful. It sounds great. There's some great chorus harmonies. Like if there's a lot of Rush songs I could have picked for this, but like when I think of something that's like a go-to and something where I think the lyrics, in addition to like the sonics of it, speak to me and motivate me, I
Mhm.
think this one sits at the top of the pile for sure. So that's my pick.
Heck yeah, that's so cool. I especially love the words in that chorus where it really is like something to get you started for the day and get you with that mindset of like if there's a risk worth taking today, like take it, you know,
Hmm.
kind of preparing yourself for that. What's that preparation meets something equals forget how that phrase goes.
Yeah.
Preparation plus readiness equals like success, something like that.
Yeah.
But with that, it's definitely, that's definitely like a good attitude to take into the morning. And obviously having a nice driving drum beat, something to get you moving. I mean, mine
Hmm.
also has a pretty good driving drum beat as well. For me, I don't know. I've always had this one in mind as something that I would have as like a soundtrack for like if I was doing a movie and it was like credits rolling and someone's just doing their morning routine and getting ready to go to their place. One of my favorite morning songs, BB King's Early Every Morning.
Mm, sure.
Oh
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
man, so good, so good. Have the little saxophone with the blues guitar, little riffs coming in. Oh, every morning I wake with the rising sun. Dun, 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 dun. It's just like, ooh,
Mhm.
I could just see me like getting everything ready in the morning, setting everything up, get my breakfast ready, get all my stuff ready, get there and just getting out the door, getting in the car, driving. It's such a good get up and go song. And I
Mhm.
love it for that. And it just has, and obviously the words are all about, you know, getting up in the morning and doing what you got to do. So absolutely just love that song. It's always been a good morning song.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting like that juxtaposition with like certain blues artists because you associate like the blues, I think, stereotypically with being like a bit of a downer genre, right? Like it might
Mhm.
groove, it might have like a really great feel, but ultimately it's the blues, right? There's a depressing sort of connotation there. And so
Absolutely.
for artists who can like push back against that and just I don't know, evoke some feeling of like ebullience or bliss or something like that out of like a blues pattern or a blues riff. I think that's really cool. And I think BB King, I'm not like an expert in his music, but like I think he's one of the best at kind of treading that line and kind of finding that balance. So that's an awesome pick.
Hell yeah, I appreciate you, my friend. Yeah, BB King is definitely one of those artists who I've always kind of wanted to dive more into.
Mhm.
I've heard tracks here and there, but everything I ever hear, I'm like, this motherfucker could play, man. This guy can play the freaking guitar, dude. And like one of
Oh
my
yeah.
favorite videos, this is off topic, but one of my favorite videos is him sitting with Derek Trucks and John Mayer.
Mm.
And Derek Trucks is playing a solo that's got both BB King and John Mayer just looking at him like, what are you doing with that thing, dude? How are you making it sing so beautifully? And
Yeah.
it's just like that craftsmanship, that you know, respect of just a guitarist seeing like another guitarist do their thing and just still being like, how do you do that? Like, I know I could, how do you do that though?
Oh
It's,
yeah.
it's so good.
Oh,
Uh,
super cool.
Absolutely. Moving on to our next thing is usually the what have you been listening to lately? And so I open the floor to you, my friend. What has been on the streaming platform, whatever your choice of music listening service? What have you been listening to recently?
Yeah. So when I think of like newer releases and stuff like that, I know this is a broader question than that, but you know, I have been getting into I've been re-exploring Harry Styles stuff a lot more lately. He just had his new record come out
Hmm.
the week prior to us recording this, and yeah, it's one of those things where his work is like I don't know if my favorite Harry Styles record is like up there with like my favorite pop albums of the 2010s and 2020s. It's high. I don't know if it's like Lord melodrama Taylor Swift 1989 high in like my esteem.
Hmm.
But boy, like going back to some of those records like Fine Line and Harry's House and stuff like that, and the new record too. I mean, I think they're all excellent and so well crafted, well produced, and also different in approach each time. Like they're all
Hmm.
recognizably Harry's styles, but all of them have different sonic characteristics that distinguish them from each other. And I think that's impressive, especially because it's the same group of producers each time. It's not like he's rotating producers. He's had the same people since his first record. And just that diversity is super impressive. So I've been listening more to that. There's a video coming out on the Music Meltdown channel for anyone familiar with that. That'll be going more into depth on that.
Heck yeah.
Um, but that's one thing I would say. As far as like other brand new stuff, though, an artist called Emily Scott Robinson put out a record called Appalachia
Okay.
in January. She is a singer songwriter, country artist, folk artist. And I've known her name for a while because for those of you familiar with the Spectrum Pulse YouTube channel, he's like massively into her stuff. Like all of her records are like 9 out of 10 for him, basically. Like he loves her stuff. And I hadn't explored much of her stuff, but this new record came out, getting great reviews, checked it out. Unbelievable. It is so good. Like she is a great songwriter, first and foremost. She writes these songs that are very emotional, that are very poignant. There's a charm, there's a beauty to it. It's not a depressing record, but it certainly touches on some like, you know, heavier topics like loss and grieving and that sort of thing. But again, there's a natural beauty. There's a lot of like optimism and hope kind of intertwined within all of it. I believe she was a social worker before she went into
Wow.
music. So, I mean, not to generalize, but I think you probably have to be a pretty damn empathetic person to go into the field of social work. And you feel
100%.
that in her music. And
A lot of
come,
stories coming from that too. You get a lot of experience with a lot of like the kind of the some of the worst of humanity, as well as like
Mhm.
some of the chances to make bright spots. But like there's a wealth of material in being a social worker, and like the things you see, the things you're exposed to, and the things that will like inspire you to write about. So that's super interesting.
Oh yeah, 100%. And like to top it off, she's a really great like vocalist. She just has a really like bright and pure voice. And the record, it's very sparse, but it sounds really good. Josh Kaufman produced it. He's in like Bonnie Light Horseman. He's done like a bunch of like really great sounding records. Um, and I believe it was put out on John Prine's old record label, if I'm not mistaken. So,
Oh wow.
she's, you know, part of that kind of tradition associated with that. So if that excites people, yeah, fantastic. It's probably my favorite record of the year so far. And I think I would be surprised if it's not very, very high in any sort of like end year list. So if y'all like singer songwriters, if y'all like genuine, emotional, hope filled songs, especially in a world where like you need that type of stuff right now, right?
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
it's well worth it. Cannot recommend it enough.
Heck yeah. I'm definitely have to check that out. I do remember checking out the other album because as you said, Mark had it as like one year, one of her songs was like one of his best of the year. And I
Hmm.
remember listening to that and it was like, man, this woman can write a song, dude.
Yeah.
But I did not know that she released a new album this year. That's definitely going to be put onto my list. I did hear the Harry album, and I cannot agree more with you enough on like how he has like his own sound, but every single album still has like a different sonic characteristic to it. I remember I got introduced to Harry Styles. Obviously, I knew he was part of One Direction, but like at the time when One Direction was around and when he first started, I was just super turned off to new music. I was super off of pop music. I was listening to just a lot of older stuff and kind of just catching up and digging through the past essentially. And I remember when I got into him with Harry's House was the first album I really truly went through. I remember listening
Mhm.
to it and I was like, oh, yeah, this is about kind of what I expected. And I remember I heard like Watermelon Sugar and eventually listened to like Fine Line. I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, this is kind of like a little more bubbly, a little more kind of has like that like super bright pop aesthetic to it. And then I
Mhm.
remember hearing a song off of the first album. I want to say it's I think Kiwi, but
Yeah.
one of
Uh-huh.
them has it's such a rocker. And I was like, "Oh my God, Harry, what is this, my guy? I
Hmm.
need I need more of this, man." And then like this new one had such a interesting aesthetic to it. I remember really liking the first couple of songs. I want to give it another listen. The first couple of songs I remember I was like, "Whoa, okay. What are we? This is really cool as well."
Hmm.
And then yeah, it's he's definitely an interesting artist. Just the part of me that still wants more of that like rocker energy, but at the same time, like I can't knock the idea that I mean this guy just is trying different things and staying true to himself while also making such different sounds and different sonic aesthetics. It's really cool. He's much more talented than a lot of people give him credit for.
Oh, for sure. Well, and I think too, because one of the critiques that I think people have of him, and especially with this latest record, because people are not that hot on this latest record from what I've seen, is that it feels like he's supposedly like a vessel almost. Like he's not like an artist, quote unquote.
Hmm.
He's like just, he relies on his production to make interesting music. And I don't buy that for a second. I think, especially with like the fact that he's been doing all this with the same producers album after album. I don't think you can do that. I don't think you can have the same producers go for not radically different soundscapes, but pretty varied soundscapes. I don't think you can really do that and not be very like artistically intentional, if that makes sense. Like I think he's driving
Absolutely.
the ship. I think he's making a lot of the decisions and, you know, vocally, I know the last one's not his most exciting record by any means. Like it doesn't really compare to the first two in that sense, but I also don't think it needs to be, you know? So I don't know.
Absolutely, brother. Yeah. Yeah, it's also interesting to see how I feel like this is a common thing, but like with every one of these boy band groups and these like, groups, it's always like there's like one person who like has that good solo career and then everyone else's solo career is kind of like kind of iffy.
Mhm.
But and I know Harry basically is like kind of the one from the One Direction crew. Who else was in that? Is that's Neil
Niall
Neil's in there, right?
Horan, yeah,
Yes.
Zane's in there.
I think Neil has a couple of songs that I enjoy,
Mhm.
but nothing that stands out obviously to the style of like Harry. I've heard a couple of Zayn songs, but again, nothing that sticks with you like
Mhm.
Harry Styles does. It's
Yeah,
kind of interesting.
yeah, for sure.
But now, of course, on to the feature presentation. Mr. Alex, tell the audience what album you decided to bring today. Show off that beautiful hat of yours you got going there.
Well, I can do you one up too. So we got the hat here and I have to orient myself. The record itself on the back
Yeah.
wall. So Bon Iver, 22 a million is the record that we're going to be talking about today. And I should just intro by saying that, I remember I was watching the original episode of this podcast with Chris recently. And I remember Chris at one point was saying something to the effect of like, you know, I was nervous about picking this record because I didn't want to pick one that was like super close to my heart just in case like you didn't like it or whatever. I've gone the entire opposite route. This is my favorite record of all time. Like if there's anything that I don't know, holds up to that status, if you will. Like there's maybe a couple of records that could fight for it, but I would say this one on most days is my number one. And I wanted to talk about it because I can speak from experience, and a lot of people watching this video who know Grant can say the same thing. One of the most open-minded people you will meet when it comes to like music and giving it a fair shake and that sort of thing. And I was honestly like, I think there's a lot of textural production, kind of atmospheric stuff here that the musician side and the side of you that likes more eccentric things would really, really value. So yeah, no, 22 a million, Bon Iver. I did want to ask you, by the way, what was kind of your familiarity with Bon Iver before you like checked out this record?
So Bon Iver was always an artist that I'd heard a lot about, but I'd never really checked out his stuff. I had a friend that I actually played in a band with. He was a bassist, and he was kind of the same thing as me, stoner guy, just kind of chill. And he would not stop talking about how much he loved Bon Iver. He was one of his favorite artists. Loved those the first two albums, and he would always talk about them. I'm pretty sure this didn't come out. He left before this album came out, so I didn't ever really get to know his thoughts on it. But yeah, it was something. It was an artist that I don't know, kind of slipped me by. And it was funny because I remember going into it and I was like, I don't even know what I'm expecting to hear. I was expecting to hear, I remember because first time I'd ever heard Justin Vernon as well was on the Folklore album with the
Hmm.
song that he has with Taylor Swift on what's it, Exile. And I was like, oh, I love this guy's voice. This guy's voice is incredible. And then to get to the album and it's very vocoded and stuff, I was like, whoa, wait, what? What's going on here? Very interesting. So yeah, I this is the first full album I've heard from him. And yeah, it was interesting when I first heard it. It was kind of, again, like you suggested to me a year ago or so, and I remember listening to it and it was again going into it with this mindset of like what am I expecting? I was kind of expecting like some kind of low key indie kind of, guitar stuff, something maybe in the lines of like I don't know, Mountain Goats or something like that with more of a deeper voice. And it was kind of a shock. It was very like, whoa, like there's a lot of distortion, there's obviously a lot of textures, there's a lot of different things going on that are kind of being thrown at me to the
Mhm.
point where I don't know. I was almost intimidated by trying to like pick it apart and dive into it. And I would kind of come back to it every now and then and I'd hear it and there was like parts that I loved. It wasn't until a week ago or so when when I was talking to you and
Mhm.
I was having a good night and essentially I decided I was like, hey, what would be an album that you would listen to if you were tripping? And you were like, well, I've never done it, but I would probably try 22 a million since you said that Bon Iver was tripping while he did that. And I listened to it again uh under that little, influence. And I can only describe it in the same way that I describe a lot of music that I like that I feel like is enhanced by drugs, where it's like it's good. It's like seeing like a 3D movie without the glasses. It's like it's still a good movie. The writing is good. The sound's good. There's
Mhm.
but there's clearly like something I'm not seeing or something that it's trying to do that I'm not getting. And I
Mhm.
swear, man, I like the textures and stuff just made different crevices of my brain glow and just I was like it could just like like it was like you could just close your eyes and you would just see movies playing in your eyelids from the different sounds and textures that are going on. It is after that I've had a whole new completely new appreciation for this album that I almost can't get enough of it right now. It's He's such a good singer and like even with all those like the interesting vocoding things, it's just like how he forms these different words and sentences and sometimes like they don't always completely make sense but like
Mhm.
they sound good and they like still evoke this certain emotion that he's going for with it and it's so cool. I'm very interested as to how you came across this album.
Yeah. Well, first of all, like, you know, my my heart grew three sizes like hearing like that reaction right now. That's so cool that like not only did you get something out of it, but like that it grew on you over time too. Because yeah, like I don't even think this is like diving into the deep end of Bon Iver. This is like hey, instead of going in like the shallow end of the kiddie pool, we're just gonna drop you into the middle of the ocean without a life raft, and you gotta figure this whole swimming shit out, right? Um, no, it's pretty wild. So yeah, Bon Iver initially, I think I first heard of them in like 2012, 2013. I remember a friend of mine at the time really liked the self-titled record. And I think I got it for them on CD as like a Christmas present or something. I checked out For Emma, the first record, like a couple years later, but I was very ignorant to a lot of like contemporary music at that time. So I didn't really get it. The whole like lo-fi production thing, I thought it was kind of cool, but I didn't appreciate it, if that makes
Hmm.
sense. Um, so fast forward to freshman year of college, 2016, which is when this came out. I my freshman year residence hall, we had, a social group of quite a few people, and there were a couple people there who were big like Bon Iver fans overall. And I have this like core memory of being in this like study room with the two of them, and they were talking about this most recent record, and it's a very different record from the first two. And they were talking about like, oh yeah, I was kind of confused by it, but we really like this one song. And they played 29 Stratford Apartments, which makes sense because it's
Yeah.
like the folkiest, most singer-songwriter thing on here.
Hmm.
um, and so I really liked that. And then one of those friends ended up becoming like one of my best friends. I lived with them for a long time, and so kind of got exposed to like a lot of For Emma and the self-titled record by osmosis through them, and started exploring it on my own. Became kind of obsessed with those first three records as well as the Blood Bank EP. And it was one of those things where I think initially I gravitated towards For Emma, kind of like the sad boy, like indie folk type of thing, whatever. And I've had my moments throughout the years with every single Bon Iver record, in one way or another. Not as much I, although I appreciate it more than I used to. But this record has always kind of had some sort of like consistent place in my mind, I guess. Like I've always been fascinated by it. And it's also a record where like I notice that, during times when I might be like not in a great headspace and that sort of thing, and I might be looking for something to, I don't know, just listen to, just to kind of sit with those thoughts for a while. I might rotate through other things. I might rotate through For Emma or Sufjan's Carrie and Lowell or Iron and Wine or whatever the case may be. But this record was always in the rotation. And eventually, after kind of thinking about it for a while and also listening to like some of like the press that Justin Vernon was doing for this album, I think I kind of understand why. It's he's talked about making this record after like hitting the height of his Bon Iver fame, essentially. Like he just won like a Grammy Award, and he'd done this stuff with Kanye and stuff. So like he was, a household name or close to it, and it terrified him. He hated it. And so he talks about like going to, I think, some like Greek island or something like that on vacation, and um I think like getting high or getting stoned or something like that. And he, in this press conference, he's like 0 out of 10. Don't recommend doing that. Awful experience. Um, but that's kind of where the germs of this record started coming from.
Hmm.
And, he's not a guy who's like very direct in the meaning of his songs. You kind of talked about the lyrics. Like Vernon's lyrics are very abstract in like all of his stuff. And some of it's like just being obtuse, and some of it is because sometimes they just genuinely don't mean anything. He writes for like word sounds, like how words sound when they're said as opposed to like what they mean.
Hmm.
um but I've always kind of interpreted this record as like the feeling of someone going through, I don't know, like an anxiety attack or like an existential crisis in a way. um and I think the really heavy like processing and the effects that are used here really kind of contribute to that. Justin Vernon's always used like auto tune. He's always used like different effects. His records have always had some level of production. Even for Emma has like reverb out the ass, right?
Mhm.
It's not a dry sounding record. But here, I mean, we've got, you know, vocoder stuff. You've got the stuff with his like little synthesizer called the Messina, I think,
Yep.
um, which is basically like it's replicating what is it called? It's some Antares like auto tune variant or something where it's basically like a harmonizer, but also with auto tune added. Um, and this one is like special because there's like no input lag at all, so you can use it in like a live setting. It's pretty cool. Um, but with all those effects and like the sampling that he's doing with these um, various samplers and synthesizers and what have you, it sounds very, you know, removed from reality a lot of the time. And that's an interesting like juxtaposition when you combine it with, the very real instruments playing. Like there's some fantastic like drums on this record, like 666. That song has some awesome, I think it's two drummers playing on that one, and it's just like sounds fantastic. I saw that one live and it was like brought the house down. Um and so you have all that. You have like the saxophones by Michael Lewis on some of these tracks, which just adds so much in the way of like texture. But I don't know. It always feels, or it mostly feels, I don't know, kind of removed, almost like, Vernon's in this like haze that he's trying to like break out of. And then at the end of the record, there's a little bit of a catharsis in this kind of last three songs because you kind of notice that all of a sudden the production is more dry than it used to be on like Eight Circle and A Million and the closing track. It's more dry. You notice that Justin Vernon isn't singing in his falsetto as much anymore. He's singing just kind of like in his chest voice. There's just a whole different vibe in those last three songs. It almost sounds like he's kind of coming out of whatever state he was in the first seven. And, saying that out loud, it sounds like it's reading too much into it. And there's a good chance it probably is. But when I'm thinking about how this record has hit me from like a mental and emotional level, that's always kind of how I've read into it. And a lot of times, man, like when you are in like a not great place, like sometimes like stuff like this, at least for me, is like the most cathartic, validating thing you can listen to just kind of empathize with where you're at. And so that emotional connection has been a huge part of the fascination. But I think also just this record is so daring for what he's done in the past, like compared to his other records. It's very abrasive, it's very distorted, like the drums on 10 Death Breast, for instance, that are like clipping through the mix and shit.
Big time.
Yeah, like, like that. One of the big like points of criticism people have of this record is like the mixing, and on that particular song, I think that's why Fantano doesn't like the record very much, but I don't think he likes Bon Iver that much anyways.
Mhm.
um but yeah, that song and 29 Stratford Apartments, like like the tape that they were using for recording, they would like do that trick where you wind it up with pencils and just you know pull it around like all over the place so it like distorts the tape. That's why you have that like effect going on. Just all these like intentional things to make this sound wrong and just like not what you would expect and meant to kind of throw the listener off balance. It's a really risky record, and I just have so much respect for like his willingness to try to do that, um especially at this stage of his career. And yeah, I don't know. There's so much fascinating shit on this record that I don't know. I love it.
Yeah, it's funny you actually say that about the like the intentionality of making it sound weird as like an art form. It almost makes me think of something like Tom Waits in a sense, where like Tom Waits talks about how I forget which album it was for, but he would have people who would come in, he'd give them parts, and like he'd get these really good session players and really good guitarists to come in, and they would just come in and like as they were warming up and just getting their stuff right, he was like, "Hey, play the piece real quick." And like while they're still kind of like not fully into it, and they're kind of still feeling their way around, they would play the part and he'd be like, "Perfect. That's all." He's like, "Well, I could play it," but he's like, "Nope. I want it just like that. I want it a little off kilter. I want it a little bit, I don't want it perfect.
Hmm.
Like that, those imperfections add to it. And I definitely see that in a lot of like this album where it is like you were saying, like the peaking on the drums or the clipping on the drums when those are kind of coming through 110. It's it's a really interesting, like as you said, a very brave and risky way to go about making your music, but it also makes it stand out in its own way as well.
Hmm.
And yeah, he's the other thing too, man. It's funny you also said that with Stratford Apartments, my notes for that is this is the most regular sounding song here.
Hmm.
And that one's definitely, I mean, on the playlist. I'll be listening to that quite a bit. As he even described it, I think a modern stoner country song, I think is what he called it. Something
Yeah.
like that. And I get that exact vibe from it. It sounds like the perfect little like sitting outside of, I don't know, like a motel or something, smoking a joint with someone while you're coming back from like a festival or coming back from a show. Just has a really cool feel to it. And then the lyrics as well are something that was so interesting to me. There's because it's a mixture of like there is stuff that doesn't seem like it makes sense, and then there's other stuff where it's like it makes a lot of sense, and it's very thought provoking. He has a lot of like uh I'm trying to remember like mythology and like religious imagery kind of throughout it. Like I know there was one of the songs that Fantano didn't like, Creeks, and I fucking love that song. Creeks
Hmm.
is so good. The way
Hmm.
I don't know. Again, just like the way he uses words as like almost not as much for their meaning, but for the way they sound, but like the way he keeps coming back to that like da 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 da. I remember something. It's just like I don't know. It's such a weird, familiar. I don't know, like almost like a little brain pattern where it just like,
Hmm.
and then like on the third one where he's a beyond ration, I was like, ah, it
Hmm.
just he has a really, I don't know if this is the right descriptor, but it's like it's a very almost like gospel quality to the way he sings, where it's very powerful, especially that opening song. I think the opening song is my absolute favorite. The way that
Nice.
that comes in with the "it might be over soon," and then just
Hmm.
"where you gonna look for God." It's like, oh, I'm floating, Bone. Oh, dude, what's
Yeah.
happening? I'm
Yeah.
scared. This is crazy. It sounds so good.
Yeah.
And like I also admired the concept of having the different numbers that kind of meant something through his life. Like 22 is a number he's very attuned with and it's like very special to him. And
Hmm.
then like 10 is 1 0, which is two in binary. And then
Hmm.
of course he's got like the religious ones, the 666, the 3 3, 45. Obviously the ninth track in the song, 4 plus 5, with the
Hmm.
four underscores before and the five after. It's it was a very interesting little setup to the way he had the songs for the album, but it's kind of like something about it kind of I like the fact that it kind of has its own lore, that it really is, it's very rewarding to go back for more listens. Like that's one of my favorite things
Hmm.
about albums. If I go back to your album to listen to a second time and I get nothing new from it, it's
Hmm.
like, Andy, like I'm done playing with you, but
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
this, like,
Exactly.
every time you come back, it's like, oh, dude, like that vocoder there. Wait, what is that little noise he's doing? How did he do that with that? There's
Hmm.
just so much to like dig with. And every time you come back, it's like you go into the toy box and you come back with a different toy every time. Like, oh, this was the coolest thing I heard this time. And you like go
Hmm.
back and you're like, oh, I heard it. This is the coolest thing I heard this time. It
Hmm.
was, it's very densely packed with a lot of cool ideas and cool sounds. And I definitely misjudged it on the first. I think again, it's a little overwhelming at first. You're just kind of
Yeah.
like, "Whew, okay, what is this?" And then once you kind of sit with it and marinate with it, you're like, oh, I see the madness behind this.
Hmm.
It's very, very cool. How did you like electronic elements when you first heard them? Were you like into like electronic and different like auto tune elements like that beforehand when you heard this?
I think no, but it wasn't a turnoff either at that time. Like I think, I wasn't familiar, like, at that time, I wasn't familiar with a lot of like, I don't know what like James Blake was doing. Like I wasn't familiar with like a lot of his stuff. I wasn't really listening to Kanye at that point, so I didn't have a frame of reference for that stuff. And I think Kanye, like, I think there's definitely an influence on this record for sure, to some
Hmm.
extent, anyways. Um, but no, yeah, I think for whatever reason, it just wasn't. Um, I don't know. I found myself more attuned to it. In some ways, maybe this is a record I can credit for influencing my receptiveness to like electronica, to records that aren't as centered around like acoustic instruments and that sort of thing. Um, like I feel like I started being really into the stuff like Stratford Apartments, like Eight Circle or whatever, that is a little bit more stripped back, less of the kind of electronic sounds. And then over time, stuff like Death Breast, stuff like Creeks and stuff really opened themselves up to me. And I'm really glad that you liked Creeks because yeah, I it's hard for me to pick a favorite off of this album. I think Creeks is up there. I think 666 is up there. Eight Circle is definitely up there. But Creeks is the one that is just it's so simple in its way because it's just him and the Messina like synthesizer. Um, but it's also, like complex. Like the way that like you know, the harmonized vocals are like panned and like how they like switch from like one chord to the next is a really
Absolutely.
cool effect. And that might just be like, I don't know, maybe he just turned one knob on the synthesizer and it does that, but it's still fucking cool. Um, and really powerful live when he does it because I mean he's doing it the exact same way. He's got the Messina up there, he's playing it, but he'll like, play with the vocal melody and change it up. He'll change some of the words around a little bit. He likes to swear a lot more in the live versions, like adds an extra fuck or damn somewhere out in there.
Hmm.
Um, but it's really, really like powerful stuff. And even if the general meaning of the song is like a little bit again vague because of his lyric choice at points, like it still hits like a truck. Like when I saw him in St. Paul in 2019, that was the highlight of the show for me. It was just like it's a full band show the rest of the time, but then it's this one song where it's just him in this synth and he's playing Creeks, and it got maybe the loudest round of applause of the night. It's so damn good. But yeah, no, it's yeah, there's so many cool things. I agree with what you said. It just there's a little Easter egg that you find every single time, whether that's a little sound, whether that's a noise, sometimes whether that's like a sample. Like I don't think I've identified like all the samples that are on the record with certainty, but the ones that are like more obvious, I think are used really well. Like the Jim Ed Brown sample that is like all over 33 God, like really interesting, really inspired choice. Like how many people born in the last 40 years know deep cuts from Jim Ed Brown, right? But
Right.
it's again, it's that really intentional and really cool selection of, different tracks to use as that foundation. That's just really awesome. And yeah, no, just there's so much going on. So I think in a way it almost like satisfies the ADHD part of my brain as well, however much that is, because it's like, at some point I've listened to For Emma enough times that I'm like, I know kind of what's going on there, but like here there's always some cool little thing that I grabbed onto, and I feel like each time I listen to it, there's like, you know, it's not that I have a new favorite song each time, but there's a song that opens itself up to me in a way that it didn't before. Like 45, maybe the most simple track on the record in some ways, but my God, like running the synth through, I think it's, or sorry, running the sax through, I think he's just running it through like the Messina. It's just some sort of like harmonizer vocoder thing. Like the effect that creates, that's so damn cool.
Hmm.
So yeah. Um, oh, and one more thing. Sorry, I know I'm going on. There's so much
Oh,
to say about
please,
this,
please do.
but him as a vocalist, yeah, he's really damn good. Like if you listen to like his early stuff pre Bon Iver, like he has a couple of solo records which are not really solo records, they're more like demos, but still. And his stuff with DR and Edison, which is like alt country ish, little bit like Dave Matthews influenced. Like that's kind of where he's pulling from. He's pulling from a lot of like roots rock and also like blues singers as far as like where his influence comes from. So that kind of gospel thing you hinted at, like he listens to a lot of that stuff. Certainly a Prince influence to some extent. I know he's a big Prince head for sure. So I think that influenced like his usage of falsetto, that sort of thing.
Mhm.
Yeah, but he's really diverse and you know I think he uses his range in a really like you know I don't know in a really like cool way. Like he stretches his voice about as wide as it'll go on these types of records. Like if you haven't heard the song Woods, that's off of the Blood Bank EP. I mean that's like full extent of his range on that thing where he's like shrieking out these high falsetto notes, but it works because it's all like edited really cool and it all kind of accumulates on top of each other. So good. Um, but yeah, no, he's a really, really strong singer. And I think you see that in why people choose to collaborate with him, why like Kanye collaborated with him, why Taylor collaborated with him, and God, whoever else. Mumford and Sons now, I guess. He's on the new Mumford and Sons record, I think, which I actually think is like all right. I think that's a decent album. But
I still need to hear it.
yeah. I'm not a Mumford and Sons hater. I know some people are, but
Neither,
I've got
neither am
nothing
I.
against him. Yeah. Yeah.
There were
No,
never
he's
anything that was like these guys are the best, but it's like I was never like the hate was so overblown. It's always been just
oh yeah.
when one of those new things comes up, you know, this new little sounds comes up, and it's not 80s rock like everyone wanted music to be for some reason in 2010. It's like,
Mhm.
all right, dudes, like, yeah, it's a guy playing the guitars and some folky stuff. I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's like so what if it's like prep school kids, playing like, folk music in overalls or whatever.
Yeah,
Like
are they
there's a
not
bunch of
allowed to make
people.
music? they,
But
they
yeah, it's
they
like
they can make stuff if they want.
there's a bunch of people, there's a bunch of rich or middle class people cosplaying as like poor people and shit. Like I don't, Mumford and Sons aren't alone in that regard by any means.
Absolutely. So, where do you have this album ranked? I know, obviously, I'm
Uh
gonna guess I know the score, but definitely
yeah.
worth at least asking.
Oh yeah. No, I mean it's definitely a straight 10 out of 10, right?
Hell yeah,
Um
hell yeah.
it's
Has it
going
always
back.
been,
Oh,
or like did it take a while? Did you like really like it on your first listen, or was it kind of one of those things where you kind of listened to it a few times and you were like, oh, I get, okay, I really get it.
yeah. That's interesting. It wasn't a 10 on first listen, I don't think. I don't know that any of his records were, apart from Sable Fable, but I was already a fan at the time.
Mhm.
Uh, I feel like first listen, this was probably in that 7 to 8 range. I still like really appreciated it, but it was also, again, one of those like, this is beyond my grasp right now because of like what my musical understanding was at the time. So it just needed to matriculate more for sure. But yeah, now after having lived with it and having had this record be a part of my life for as long as it has, yeah, it's a clear 10. It's one of the strongest 10s that there is. And, you know, I've talked a lot about both the emotional and like the musical angles. And I think from a musical angle, I could absolutely still justify it being one of my favorite albums of all time because of how risky and how daring it is in a lot of ways and how much ground it's covering. Like if I were to produce an album, like I would want to try to take cues from this record, even though like I've got no clue how they're doing half the shit that they're doing. Um, but from like an emotional angle too, I'm sure you feel the same way in the sense that there are certain records, certain songs where you have a strong enough emotional connection to them that it just kind of defies rationality, right? Like they play such an important part in who you are, how you developed as a musician, as a music fan, as a person, that sort of thing that just they're in the Hall of Fame. They've got their plaque on the wall, right? And they're never going away. And there's a handful. I probably have a lot of songs that I could put in there. There's probably not a ton of records that I think are at like that level of just pure unadulterated love. Like Beatles' White Album is probably one. Tori Amos' Little Earthquakes is definitely one from an emotional standpoint. Um, but this record also would fall under that category where it's like there's a lot to appreciate on like a musical level and as I've talked about, but just from like where what this record has done for me and the fact that I've listened to it during some of the days when I felt as bad as I've ever felt in my life,
Mhm.
like it it fits that bill. It's that level of like important to me, and I could not imagine my life or my musical upbringing being nearly the same thing without it. I mean, I did one of my final presentations in college. I think my last presentation on college on Eight Circle from this record because it's an example of what I called like a cumulative form where the song like builds up gradually, new instruments come in each verse and that sort of thing. And so I use that to kind of talk about it. So yeah, I mean, it's impacted so many areas of my life for sure. So it it means a lot to me. And, you know, I don't know. I'm glad that we're talking about it, and I'm glad to see that like, it's opened itself up to you. I think that's just super, super freaking awesome.
Yeah, it was. I'm glad you had suggested it when I was. I'm glad you were awake and around when I was doing that. I forget what time it was. It was probably pretty late because
Mhm.
I always do it pretty late. But yeah, it was definitely just like again, because I wanted to do the show with you so bad because I really enjoy talking music with you. You're someone who is super knowledgeable, but you're also so open-minded with like the stuff that you do like. You're always willing to give things a chance. You're always willing to give things a little bit of that benefit of a doubt, as well. And just, I mean, sometimes people are making music to try and break boundaries. Sometimes people are just making music to just make a song, make a fun little ditty, and
Mhm.
obviously this is definitely one of those ones where this is a masterful, complete work of art, like absolute perfect little strokes to make everything happen in here. What's your favorite song? Has there been one that always was? I know you said it kind of switches around a bit for you. Was there one that's always kind of been there, or like is it like it was definitely this one and now it's definitely this one?
Yeah. It's yeah, I feel like when I look at this list, I would say there's kind of been three that have been my favorites, my clear favorites at any given time. I think at first it was 29 Stratford Apartments. Again, it was like the easy access point. It was the first one I heard. And again, like accessible, but also like kind of again weird because you got the distortions, you have the like some of the falsetto stuff is like pitch shifted, and they've also got I think it's Sean Carey, their drummer, who's like doing some of the falsetto too. Um, so I don't know, it was a cool song, but it was also like the most accessible one. So that was my first. Then it was Eight Circle for a long time because again, when I talk about like the arc of the record and how like a lot of it is like very distorted and weird, and then at the end it started to sound kind of starts sounding more normal, quote unquote. Um, that Eight Circle was kind of the transition into that because that's the one where he kind of stopped singing in his falsetto for the most part, and it kind of reminds me of the track Beth Rest off of the self-titled record where it's almost like there's a bit of a power ballad element to it as far as like the kind of majesty and the sweeping nature of it. But it's not too like overwrought or anything. And I just love the different like vocal lines. Like at the end, there's like three different vocal parts going on. That's just so damn cool. So that was my favorite for a long time. And now it's probably 715 Creeks for the reasons that I talked about earlier. And incidentally, 715, so that's like the area code for Eau Claire
Yep.
overall. And again, thinking about, how connected he is with like the upper Midwest and with like his hometown and that type of thing. I don't think he lives here year round, but he's still here like all the time. Like he was in Minneapolis a lot during like the recent um, shit going down there.
Mhm.
So it's just cool to see how connected he is. And as a fellow white man, bearded white man who's slightly depressed from the upper Midwest, like that kinship is valuable. I value that.
I feel that. I feel that. That's so cool. Yeah, definitely for me, I think 22 over soon, I think is
Mhm.
probably right now still my favorite. Just again, just I think for me that's like a perfect song. Like
Mhm.
that I every time I hear it, I'm just like it just I will say one of the weird things with it, I do find that the going from that song into the very heavily distorted thing, I think that was partially something that kind of got me too
Mhm.
when I first listened to it. Because I remember, I think when I first heard it, I liked the first song, and we went to that, and I was like, "Whoa, whoa, where are we going here?" But
Yeah.
it definitely it 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 opens itself up more the more you hear it, and it makes more sense the more you listen to it. But yeah, 22 over soon, just I think everything about that song is just super cool. And then as you said, Creeks just it's so simple, but the things he's doing with that Cena is just it's so cool. Like you were saying, how it feels like it's bouncing around. It feels alive. It's just constantly moving. It's swirling around. I feel like that's the sounds almost of like the whole album, where it is just like you are like it's very existential. You're almost just floating there, and everything is just kind of morphing and forming around you with all the sounds and the way they form into each other. And one of the credits is sad sacks of shit.
Yeah.
And I was like, I gotta know what this is. It's the coolest little thing. I couldn't find anything on it, but I was like, that's so funny. And I wonder if that's like a name for like if they had like if it's a person or like an artist, or if it's like a something that they like a certain sound that they made or a certain production element or combination of things that they're just like these two things together are that. So we
Mhm.
credited that to make sure that that was on here. But
Yeah, I mean, all the credits have just like these like funny names. Like you got someone who's credited for being Scream Defense. There's one that's credited as the Whisperer. There's one who's credited just as Neighbor. So like, I think the Sad Sax of Shit is like a bunch of saxophonists that are on like Eight Circle and that type of thing. I think it's just a group of people.
that's super cool. Yeah. I love that a lot.
Yeah. Oh
All
man.
right, my
Is it
friend.
I had to ask, by the way,
Yeah, absolutely.
is there a song in the record still that you feel like still has to kind of unlock itself for you, that you're like, I feel like I need more time with this one? Anything that jumps out?
Look at the track list. Um, I don't know. I would say maybe if anything, Moonwater. I mean, I don't know, man. I really like a
Hmm.
lot of it. Like a lot of them all have like a really good like certain like balance to them that I very much enjoy hearing them. I
Hmm.
will say one of the big things with this, I do feel like this is an album where it's like I don't know, like obviously the way I listen to music, I'm a very songs oriented person. My I like to grab the songs that I like from a album, I throw them in my playlist and they're just always there. This is almost so much an album that it's like if I'm hearing one
Hmm.
track, I gotta hear the whole thing. And it's only 34 minutes. It's really not a long album at all. And for me, album length is so important to me.
Hmm.
Making an album that has everything there feel worth it and feel like it needs to be there. There's
Hmm.
nothing like that's how I feel with this. There's nothing that I would be like, you probably could have left that on the cutting room floor. I could probably, that could have been cool, maybe like a deluxe album track or something. Everything here just it fits. It all sounds so great. It's all part of the same sonic universe, but each song almost kind of similar to like Harry Styles. Each song has a different like sort of sonic aesthetic to it. They all have a different quality to it. Obviously, like the Death Breath is very heavy. The Oversoon's very gospel. Creeks is very simple.
Hmm.
The Stratford Apartments is very a little more folky. It's such a journey
Hmm.
throughout like all these different little music palettes and it all works and it all comes together. I don't know, because I even still like Moonwater. I really don't think there's a
Hmm.
song that I'm down on at all on the album. it is very it's a terrific album.
Oh, for sure. And it makes sense that if there was any record that or any song that you were like a little bit more down on, it would be Moonwater, just because I feel like that is a transitional track. Like 666 fades into that, and then that fades into Eight Circle.
Mhm.
Um, but I do love the ambiance of that one. It kind of reminds me of the last song from his most recent record, Sable Fable, which is just like ambient thing, which side note that kind of goes back to the beginning of this album discussion. Justin Vernon talked about how that song, the closer on Sable Fable, was written after he like took a dose of like acid, like started tripping or something, and then listened to the John Martin song Small Hours off of his record One World, and how
Mhm.
that like, you know, the beauty of the natural world and that general ambiance and that sort of thing really kind of hit him. And I think the same thing is true for Moodwater. So all that's to say, like if you ever need another record to listen to when you're, you know, having a good time late at night, John Martin, One World. It worked for Justin Vernon. It might work for you.
Hey, I'll add it to the list. I'm always looking for good albums to listen to in that state.
Yeah.
It's a fun way to listen to music, you know. It again, like it's hard to describe the feeling to someone who doesn't do them, but I feel like that's always been my best way to describe it is it's like watching a 3D movie without the 3D glasses and like you see it and it's like whoa. And like obviously that's an aesthetic that like doesn't work for everybody, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But if you do love it, you freaking love it. It's super
Yeah.
cool. And it just yeah, it this the different ways that all the sounds morph and the like it feels like the words just grow from these sounds and it's it's a really cool experience. It's a really cool, well put together record. I thank you so much for bringing this. I'm so glad I got to, and I'm so glad as much as I hate that it took so long for this to happen, I'm glad that I sat with it. I'm glad that I gave it the first shot to kind of open myself to it. And then I was really ready when I went back into it in that state to kind of go in and be like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, okay, okay, I see. I
Mm-hmm.
get you. I know what we're throwing down here, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, super cool. Thank you so much for bringing that. I'm so glad we got to do this. I'm so glad we got to talk about it.
Yeah, me too, man. No, super cool, super excited that you love the record. And yeah, just super happy to be doing this. I always love talking music with you. Like I said, you're one of the most, I think, open-minded, receptive, fair people when it comes to music discourse that I've interacted with. So yeah, just love being here and excited to, I don't know, maybe see more of your opinions out in the wild at some point in the future. But yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. And before we go, anything you wanna promo, anything you got going on the Music Deep Dive channel? I know you had a really cool video I watched just recently. I think you'd like to tell people about that book you just read.
Yeah. So the Music Deep Dive YouTube channel, if you haven't checked it out, that's where I do most of my stuff. Kind of was on a little bit of a break for a while while other stuff was going on. Just put out a video on the book Mood Machine by Liz Pelly. Came out last year, one of the most important music related books of the last 5, 10 years, probably. It's about, you know, Spotify and how Spotify has, you know, its impact on the music industry in bad ways and other bad ways. So it's a very cheery read, of course, but it's very rewarding. More reviews and that type of thing to come. And I've got some other projects, longer form video ideas in the pipeline that will hopefully be coming out in the not too distant future. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, Music Deep Dive is where you can find me on YouTube and social media platforms and all that fun stuff.
Absolutely. I'll be throwing a link down there in the comments as well in the description. Alex, thank you again, man. So glad to have you here. Thank you for coming on and showing me a hell of a cool record. I hope you have a great freaking day. And I can't wait until the next time you're on here, man.
Oh yeah. Thanks, brother.